Hey guys, welcome to our podcast. It's good to have Tim and Matt, Pastor Don here. We're going to talk about conscience, which is really what we went through in the sermon on Sunday. Spent some time in the book of Genesis talking about Adam and Eve in the garden and the time that they spent in the garden. And then there was this maybe could have been decades of innocence, where they're communing with God, communicating with Him, and then they fall to the trap of the serpent, Satan, and they move from innocence to conscience. Conscience they had, but when they sinned, they were aware of their sin and that guilt that came out of it. So, yeah.
I was just thinking, and not to distract us, when you were talking about, they could have been in the garden a long time before the actual temptation. You realize what it would have taken to name the entire animal kingdom? The time.
I don't realize that.
It's incomprehensible. This is incomprehensible. You think, 24 hours, he's got it done. No. I mean, some theologians think he might have even given them their nature and given them the names. Speculation, of course. But man, it could have been decades before the temptation.
There's some cool things. I was just thinking about the fact that there is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and there's nothing in the scriptures that says Eve knew what it was called. If you go back to Genesis 2, God told Adam that's what it was. But to Eve, that wasn't there in Genesis 3.
Good point.
And there's some interesting things that occur in that passage, and I love the timing that's going on with it. And so this idea of conscience is significant, though, because every person that walks this earth has a sense of conscience in them. And I think this deep conversation series, we have to ask ourselves, why do we have a conscience? I mean, what is it about our conscience that might reveal to us that we have a God? And as Christians, we know He's revealed Himself through Jesus, but even if you're not there. So,
Ecclesiastes says that God has placed eternity in our hearts, but we haven't understood it. Could that be an answer? There's something of eternity that's placed into each and every individual person, and that would be inclusive of this thing called the conscience. Because it doesn't require us to be taught that stealing is wrong. There are certain things that we inherently know are wrong, regardless.
It's kind of cool how we're all built that way. I mean, it's cool, and it's cool, but not cool, right? It's like we're all kind of on the level playing field with it, and we kind of know that, but we weren't ultimately originally designed that way. But now we're all on that same playing field, and so I don't know. It's just cool when say I have my conscience is a little bit off in something. I have a brother in arms or a sister that can kind of walk through that. I know that's not where we're going with it, but it is cool to know that if you find that community, that brother sister, we all feel that in different ways. And we all have our conscience going off in different ways for different things. And so it's just cool how different but unique, how unique but how similar we are,
I have an interesting experience. I'll make this real quick, and that is, I remember the first time I consciously stole something. I was just a kid.
Me too.
Right? Yeah,
Let's hear the story.
Yeah, tell us. Yeah. We got stories.
I'm literally around 5 years of age. I go to the corner store by myself, and you could do that back in those days. And there's a red light, and I wait for the light to turn green, across the street, and I walk into a store, and it's a Chinese proprietor's in Oakland, California, and I steal a bag of Planters peanuts. I remember it was Planters salted peanuts. I put it in my pocket, in my pants pocket, and I just kind of casually hang around a little bit, and I walk out really casually, and get to the intersection, wait for the light to turn green, and I cross the street, and it hits me. I stole something. It really hits me. I'm bothered by it, and I literally want to take them back, but I was too afraid.
Wow.
Now, that's the thing, because, I hadn't gotten caught, but it bothered me enough. I'm trying to figure out, can I get these things back into the store? And fear stops me, but it truly did. And I remember this. It truly bothered me.
Yeah.
Mine's similar to that. I was at Coburn's grocery store. I think I was about 5 years old. I literally remember moving the bubble gum, which my mom would never buy us, the bubble gum that you could blow bubbles with, back and forth while waiting with her in the line. And I stuck it in my pocket. And I think my conscience was not quite as sharp as yours, Don. So
Reprobacy.
I wanted to share in the guilt with my brother. And so I offered him a piece.
Whoa.
So it's like, oh, okay, I'm guilty, so why don't you join me?
Yeah.
And he told on me. And then it was over.
It was over, man.
That's it. Dad, spanked me, brought me back, made me pay for it, talked to the manager, apologized, the whole thing.
Wow.
So there it is.
How
Confession's good
cool.
for the soul. What do you guys have?
Yeah. What did you do at 5?
Let's go.
I'm trying to think back to 5. I was like, I think I was helping my dad mow the grass.
Come on. Listen.
That was building walls in churches in other countries.
Look at you guys.
It's funny though, because just thinking back to what even Don was saying, but just like the idea of conscious, like being this healthy boundary, this fence that like I think of like Psalms 16, where David's like, the boundary lines have fallen to me in pleasant places. And it's just this idea that like the conscious kind of helps hem us in to be where we need to be. And it kind of like an electric fence to a dog almost. When you cross out of that, it's like, it like hits you like, oh, okay, there's danger over there. I might run into the road and get hit. It kind of tells you where you should and need to be.
I have never thought of that verse in light of that. That's a good insight.
Yeah. So let's go to Genesis. So just kind of thinking back into this, it's like, so conscience comes up, and we know the story. Adam and Eve are afraid, and they hide themselves.
Yeah.
And there's this thing about conscience that when it reveals our guilt, we are afraid.
Yeah.
It's common among humanity.
Yeah.
And we do stuff. And so they went and hid. And then there's this choice when the fear comes up, because it's such a heavy burden to wonder, what is going to happen to me? What consequence will I have? And we really have two choices. We can try to fix it ourselves, or we can trust in what God has given to us through forgiveness through the cross. And Adam and Eve, it's just comical what they did. They made fig leaf clothes. I mean, it's like, seriously, like sew together any kind of a leaf and give it 2 or 3 weeks, and that thing's not working out anymore.
No.
I guarantee it. It's just like, it's such a great story of what we try to do.
That's what we do every day.
Every day.
You look at it, everyone's doing that. Everyone's trying to sew quick leaves together.
That's it. And it's ridiculous.
Doesn't
You look
work.
at it, it's like, it's sad.
See that from a mile away.
Yes, you do.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, your leaves are falling.
It is. And when you're a parent and you have kids and they do it, and it's like they're hiding it, and it's like, no, this is not working out. You're not doing very well at hiding your sin. And it looks like that, but it's like, what does God think of when he sees us? He must have so much pity, I guess, on our idiocy of what we try to do to cover the pain instead of just admitting it and accepting the forgiveness of the cross from Jesus and finding that forgiveness and redemption in him.
Wow.
And even just thinking back to like that moment of being conscience stricken, and now you're able to like think for yourself and you're trying to make your own decisions. And I just think of like how heart-wrenching that must have been for God, who walked with them and had built this trust, and now all of a sudden, like, they don't trust him anymore. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's like... but how often does that apply to us, where we now, because of conscience and us trying to make our own decision, we don't trust the Lord to be good? He didn't change. You know what I mean? He didn't change.
I was talking to some in-laws a number of years ago, and they were explaining how their son, who was a young teenager, had allowed a buddy to put a tattoo on his arm, and the buddy didn't sterilize the needle and didn't, the whole issue of ink and what have you. And my in-law was saying, that boy could have been blood poisoned. What's wrong with this dude? And in the position of a parent is, how many times have I told you? And why is it that he has more credibility than I do in your life? So think about this. God shows up on the scene, and they hear the voice of the Lord in the cool of the day. And God says, where are you, first of all? Where are you? And who told you that you were naked? And what must have gone through God's mind? How is it that the adversary can have more credibility than me? I told you not to touch the tree. I told you that the day you touch the tree, eat of the tree, you're going to die. I told you that. The adversary comes along, and I mean, I've done that as a parent. I've gone through this. What does this dude have that I don't have, that he can convince you to take a shot of whiskey or whatever when I've been talking to you all these years?
Yeah.
Who is this dude?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my buddies did it, so
That's good. I like that. Yeah. Man, this is a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that it does point to the fact that we have a designer God who has sent his loving son Jesus to take care of our guilty consciences. And it's just a beautiful story. And it's like, why work so hard to cover our path, to find a new way to fix it ourselves when he's fixed it? Accept that forgiveness and worship him for the fact that he's done something we could never do for ourselves.
But there's another dimension, and that is there's an elasticity associated with conscience. You see, my story doesn't end with 5 years of age, I stole Planters peanuts. The fact of the matter is that I don't remember the details, but I do remember this, that as life went on, I continued to steal. And I got to the place where stealing didn't bother me. See, I remember the first time I stole. It really, truly bothered me. But there was a period of time where it didn't bother me. Now, what happens there in light of conscience? Because it was my conscience yelling at me when I was 5. But if I ignore my conscience, it's like this elasticity effect to where it ceases to bother me. That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, those
are the deep sins.
Yeah, that's the stuff that's more scary than
Yeah.
feeling it.
Yeah.
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 Man, well, this is a great conversation. And man, thanks for joining us. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts on this, practical stuff to throw into the mix, but I think we should talk more about it, and open up these conversations. If there's people who are maybe pursuing a conversation about Jesus, maybe they don't know Jesus yet, we want to challenge everybody to have more of these conversations and say, hey, does the fact that you have a conscience point you to the possibility that there is a God?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And this next week, we're going to talk about the Imago Dei, the image of God written, and how this affects things such as racism, how it affects the decisions that we make, how we treat and view other people who might be different than us, and how we treat and view people who may have hurt us, and how can we even forgive them. All this is wrapped into it, and I hope you jump in next week because we're going to talk about the Imago Dei.
It's going to be good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Signing off this week. We'll catch you next week.
Yes. I like it.